Welcome to Get Known, Be Seen Web TV. I'm Trish Springsteen and I'm your host, and I'm delighted to bring to you episodes in Get Known, Be Seen. What we do here is we have two streams. I bring on guests who are experts in their fields, and these experts share with you their tips, techniques and strategies on how to get known and be seen. I also bring on people that are wanting to get known and be seen. They've either written new books, they've got a new message, they've got a business they've started, they've got an app or product that they're now taking that deep breath and getting up there and wanting to share it with you all. So that's what Get Known, Be Seen Web TV is all about. And in today's episode, it's my absolute delight to bring to you Wendy H Jones. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, I'm waving to you from Scotland.
Wendy is all the way from Scotland, and that's absolutely fantastic because we're going to delve into some of the subtle differences between writing in Scotland and writing in Australia. The writing may be similar, but we could be bringing out some interesting differences between the marketing and the leveraging. So we're going to get into that. So before we delve deeper into that, let's find out a little bit more about Wendy H Jones. International award-winning, best-selling author Wendy H Jones lives in Scotland, where her books are set. Wendy served in both the Royal Navy and the Army, reaching the rank of Major. So let's all be on our best P's and Q's. Won't be in trouble if we're not. Killer's Countdown was her first novel and the first book in the Shona McKenzie Mysteries. Killer's Crew won the Books Go Social Book of the Year. The Dagger's Curse was a finalist in the Woman Alive magazine Book of the Year. Cass Claymore Investigates allows her to show the humorous side of her writing. A highly successful marketer, Wendy has just released Marketing Matters, part of the Writing Matters series alongside Motivation Matters. She also writes the Bertie the Buffalo picture books. And Wendy has co-authored two anthologies, The Power of Why and Women Win Against All Odds. She's the president of the Scottish Association of Writers and the host of the Writing and Marketing Show podcast, as well as a writing and marketing coach. And when she has time, she writes zillions of books. Welcome, Wendy. Look,
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Going through that bio and reading about all the things you do, you have such a diverse interest and range of things that you do. How you balance them is something I really want to discuss as we go along. But first, let's just explore, how did Wendy H Jones get to where she is now? How did you start the writing? Going from a major in the Royal Navy and the Army and writing.
Well, I've always written. I was an early reader. We've got a huge literary tradition in Scotland. We've got Carnegie libraries sprinkled everywhere. That's Andrew Carnegie of the Carnegie Hall in New York fame. He was Scottish and he was also big on reading, and he did libraries everywhere. So I was an early reader. I was reading from the age of 3, and I've always written. I was writing fan fiction before fan fiction was a thing. I think I must have started it, you know. But I was in the services. I was all over the world, but I was writing things down as I went along. I wrote down what I was doing, even if it was just letters home or postcards home. I was always writing down what I was doing and why I was doing it. And then I moved into academia. Even though I was in the Army, I was the head of pre-registration nurse education for the Army, Navy and Air Force. So I was expected to publish in academic textbooks. Then I left the services and ended up in academia and was writing academic work. Then I got very ill with my lungs. I was physically disabled. When I was sitting down, I was fine. The minute I stood up, my oxygen levels dropped so low that we were barely conducive to life. So I just had to sit around, which most people would love to be told to sit around, but trust me, it is frightfully boring. It really is. So I left a high-powered job as a deputy director of a university faculty. I moved back to Scotland, and I was a bit bored, and a friend of mine challenged me to, she said, she was on a radio show, and I phoned her up and said, hey, you know, what would be your advice to a new writer? She was an editor of a magazine, and her advice was, write. And I thought, well, that's not frightfully helpful, you know, but it's true, but not frightfully helpful. But she also said, and why don't you do NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month, which is where you pledge to write 50,000 words in the month of November. Well, it was October, and I thought, oh, well, I might as well give it a go. If nothing else, it'll pass November. And I did have an idea for a book. But, and this is the big but part, at that point, I wrote a blog. I had not written one word. It wasn't even time for NaNoWriMo. And I said, I am going to write a book. And the world went nuts because I already had a platform, because I was big on social media. I was chatting to people, people that I knew. And they said, oh, when's it coming out? And I'm like, I'm writing it, you know. So I started the buzz, and I hadn't even written one word. So then I wrote the first chapter of my the first 50,000 words of my first book, and thought, oh, well, I might as well go with it. And it went from there, just a bit of a challenge to do NaNoWriMo, and before I knew where I was, I had 17 books out.
Wow, awesome. I think the thing that our watchers can take out of that, people, is those gold words that you were given, just right.
Yeah.
Because I think most people, when they're starting their books, they get so head up on, how am I going to start? What am I going to do? What do I have to have in place? And really, it is just start writing.
Yeah.
Not so easy, maybe, but just a particular area. So coming forward then, what do you find are your biggest challenges with your writing, with your books?
Well, time is always a big thing, because there's so many demands on your time. I'm single. I don't know how people do it if they've got kids and a husband. Seriously, I just don't know how they do it, because my time is mine, although I do have an extended family and I spend time with them, so I'm not just sat writing all day every day. But I do a lot of traveling, and I'm very fortunate in that I say I'm an anytime, any place, anywhere girl, which sounds a bit dodgy until I say in a literary sense. I can literally write anywhere. So I'm really fortunate. It came as a bit of a shock that I actually had to write at home for extended periods of time at the moment, because obviously we were all stuck at home. And like everybody, I have to say, one of the biggest challenges in the first 3 weeks of lockdown was, oh my goodness, your brain just freezes. And huge writers have said that. I'm talking, you know, people who are millionaires, they've said, I just could not write. I could not write a word, because your brain was subsumed with some enemy that you couldn't see and that wasn't in your house but was out there, and life wasn't normal. So that was a big challenge. But the challenge is to sit yourself down at a desk every day, because trust me, if you're meant to be writing or editing, suddenly your house is spotless. Absolutely spotless. Every dish is washed, every cupboard's cleaned, your washing's done, you've stripped every bed, even beds nobody's sleeping in. You know, you suddenly find you need to strip them, wash them, remake them. It's unbelievable. So it's setting time aside to actually write, because the more books you bring out, you will spend time marketing, and that's very important, but your life can be taken up with marketing. You forget that you're a writer. Your title isn't marketer, your title is writer or author, and you need to do that. But it's just writing and trying to write every day. That's the biggest challenge.
Awesome. And I love that. Yes, you do suddenly find a lot of things to do other than sit down and start writing. It's amazing how many things have to be fixed up around the house. Absolutely. Amazing.
And you suddenly turn into Delia Smith. And if nobody knows who Delia Smith is in Australia, she's a cook, a television cook. And she got loads of books out, and suddenly you're cooking things that you've never cooked in your life before. I'm very good at lamb harissa all of a sudden.
I love it. I love it. What that though is bring into the marketing. There are so many of my people who watch the show who are new authors, people who are just starting out, and some who have been writing for a while, but for some peculiar reason their books aren't getting anywhere. So let's delve a little bit in, how do you get your books out there? How do you leverage the books? How do you market them? What works for you?
Yeah, well, networking is key. I'm a very friendly person everywhere, whether it's in real life, whether it's on social media, whatever it is. I'm a very friendly person. I'm a very helpful person, and I'm very good at networking. I chat to people not because I think they'll give me anything, because People are people. It doesn't matter who they are, what they are, how many books they've got out, whether they're publishing a multi-millionaire publisher, whether they're starting out. People are people, and we need to remember that and treat them as a person, not as a potential, oh, you can help me, or you're a potential reader. Treat them as a person and just be nice to them. And invariably people are nice back, but that's not the point. If they're not nice back, then that's their drama, not mine. You know, I've enjoyed myself in the process. But it's not just that. I started to buzz, as I said, from before I even wrote the first word of my book. Now there'll be people going, well, that's all very well. I've got 7 books out and I still can't sell them, and you know, it's a bit late now for me. It's never too late. I've written a marketing book, and one of the tips I give in it is, when is the best time to market? The best time to market is now. The best time to market is now. Wherever you are at that point, that's the best time to market. Now, if you're a new author, the best time to market is before you bring your first book out. Tell people you're writing one. And everybody goes, oh, well, what if I don't bring it out? I said, well, it's accountability. Once I'd written a blog and like 7,000 people had read it, and I'd put on Facebook, Twitter, everything, I'm going to write a book. There was a lot of people holding me accountable. When is your book out? When is your book out? When is your book out? I told everybody I was doing NaNoWriMo, so that held me accountable. So start marketing your book at that minute. Now, everybody goes, I haven't got a budget. Well, you need a budget now. That's the point of the matter. Everybody needs a budget at some point. But there are a lot of things you can do without a budget. You know, I use social media to a certain extent, but it is called social media for a reason, not marketing media. It's meant to be social. And that's another big thing I see. People go, oh, I've written a book and my publisher tells me I've got to get the word out about it. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll join Twitter, I'll join Facebook, I'll join everything. And then they haven't got a following. And they go, I've had private messages from people, and bear in mind I know a lot about marketing, and they'll say to me, can you tell everybody about my book on social media? They've been on social media for about a week and friended me, and I'll go, well, why don't you tell people about your book on social media? Well, I've done that and people are unfriending me. Yeah, because all you've got on your feed is buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. It's not about that. It's about networking and being nice to people and building up a readership. In order for a book to be seen, or to be bought, should I say, it needs to be seen at least 6 or 7 times. That's the cover needs to be seen 6 or 7 times. The blurb needs to be seen 6 or 7 times. So just bring it up naturally. And I do that. I use graphics. I will tell people. I will help people with their books. Public speaking is another thing I do. I do a lot of that. Fortunately, I'm very good at speaking. I'm very good at public speaking. I can make my talks extremely humorous, so people learn about marketing or they learn about writing and they're having a laugh and they go, oh my goodness, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard, but I can't wait to get out and market, or I can't wait to get out and write. So it's just using all the means possible and saying yes. I'm brilliant at saying yes. Really good at saying yes. And I find myself in some very sticky situations like, oh, would you like to write a children's mystery series? Oh, yes. And just said, well, pitch it to us. And I was like, my goodness, I better come up with something. Fortunately, my publisher, who was Australian but living in Britain at the time, so it was a British publisher, but she's now back in Australia. So if she's listening to this, hello, Ariane. Ariane's someone else. Hello, Adrienne. And so I said yes, and then I pitched it to her, and less than a week later, I had a 3-book deal. So use every opportunity. It's just using it wisely and networking and being nice.
Awesome, awesome. There are some absolute gold nuggets in what Wendy has just said to us. Those things about networking, I'm very passionate about networking, and for me, and what I've brought out, what you've said, and I'm sure you'll agree, networking is about building relationships. You have to have like, knowing and trust before people are going to buy things from you. They're not going to buy anything unless they know who you are. And I think that's one of the things, Wendy, that you have done extremely well. You've built up that networking, that like, knowing and trust. So I would say that at this stage, as soon as you even mention that you've got a new book coming out, you've already got it sold because people are following you and they know what you do. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things is write more books. The Detective Inspector Shona McKenzie Mysteries has 6 books in the series. Number 7 will be out any minute. Unfortunately, I had a difficult time in July, so it's been delayed a bit. But it will be out any minute, and that's Killer's Curse. And people keep, every day I'm getting messages and emails going, where's the book? Where's the book? You said it would be out in July. Where's the book? Where's the book? And I'm like, I've got to get this out because everybody's waiting for it, you know. And it's the same with the Cass Claymore books, the Bertie the Buffalo books. Everybody's asking when the next book is coming out. So you do build up a following and you build up a readership. And the more, one of my biggest tips to sell more books is write more books. But don't just write more books. You need to let people know they're coming out. You need to build up a buzz. You can do things like that with showing them the cover. I mean, people are fed up looking at the cover for Killer's Curse. They want the book, not the cover.
Oh, awesome. I love it. I love it because there's a lot of things that what Wendy has just said to us, and what Wendy shared with us, is that you don't have to start with a huge budget at the moment. You don't have to start really paying huge amount of money. It's basically just talking about what you're going to do and doing it in a way that is non-selly and inviting people to come on that journey with you. I think that's what works for you. You invite people to come on the journey of your writing with you on where you're going, and they like to get on it. One of the things I would like to ask, though, out of all of that was, how do you manage your time? The pressure sometimes. Do you find it very stressful with people saying, when's your book? I mean, I love the accountability, and I think that's awesome. But it has, I would think, a flip side to that a little bit as well, doesn't it?
That doesn't stress me quite so much. If it's been delayed for any reason and you've got a book launch in a bookshop, that stresses me a bit because you need the books. I've never got down to the wire or had to cancel a book launch, so that's a good thing. Nothing, no, it doesn't stress me because, let's face it, with all due respect, people are dying all over the world, you know, and that's important. A book being late is not a drama. It's upsetting, extremely upsetting. Because you want it out on time, you don't want your readers to have to wait, but it's in the big scheme of things, it's a book, you know. And so getting yourself worked up over the deadline for a book, unless your publisher's going, I want my £200,000 advance back if you don't get it out tomorrow, then that would be stressful, you know, because not that they do, I have to say, publishers are, books have been delayed. In the past 5 months, I don't know how many big authors have delayed the launch of their book, and the publishers have done it. They just said we can't do it at the moment, you know. It's we need to get things into perspective, and getting stressed over the lateness of a book is just going to send you to an early grave, to be honest. Now that's my personality. I don't get stressed very easily. What I will do is I will stay up extremely late. I've written till silly o'clock in the morning. I've written till 2, 3 a.m. and then I've got up again at 5 and started writing again if I'm really close to the wire for anything. And I usually get things out on time. But if life happens, you know, and getting worked up about it, just all that happens is the book's still delayed and you're stressed. So you might as well be calm.
And I guess the byproduct is, if the people are going to wait a bit, they're going to jump in really quickly when it comes out, because
absolutely, the minute it comes out, they'll be on it like a bonnet, as we say here.
I wanted to just have a little bit how you balance, because you've really got 3 different genres that you write in. You've got your crime fiction, and I guess you could say 4 if we add in the young adult mystery as well. We'll put that with the crime. And then you've got children's picture books, and then you've got your writing and marketing books. So they're really actually 3 different genres. How do you find the balance between them? Or do you, so I'm just going to write this one, or do you have 2 or 3 going at the same time? How does that work for you?
Balance-wise, I tend to focus on one book at a time. I had to get the marketing book out for various reasons, so that took priority at that point. But again, I'll not work on it because it's pretty much completed. I'm just editing it, Killer's Curse, and get that one out. And then I did start writing Blood and Bones for a reason. That's the second Cass Claymore book for a reason. And I was also writing the 3rd Ferguson Flora mystery, which is the young adult one. The picture book, the publisher wanted a second picture book, so I wrote the Bertie the Buffalo picture book, and that's with the publisher and is coming out before Christmas. I hope, if all goes to plan. But plans are plans at the moment, you know, it's all fluid. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But there are, you know, I tend to try and work on one thing at a time, because if you're working on 4 or 5 things at a time, then you're going to lose the plot, really. Although I am working on another one in the background because it involves research. I'm doing yet another genre, and it's kind of half narrative, it's fiction, but based completely on fact. So it's a fictionalized account of a chap called Thomas Graham, and he was a real surgeon in the mid-1800s, a naval surgeon. He came from quite an impoverished background. He didn't come from a background where you'd go into medicine, but he went into medicine and ended up at Surgeons' Hall in Edinburgh. So that was just after the Burke and Hare scandal, if you know what that is. Burke and Hare were the body snatchers. They were meant to be grave diggers, and they sold the bodies, but they didn't actually do that. What they did was they murdered people and then sold the bodies, which was much easier than digging a grave.
Yeah, I guess
you
so.
know, apparently. They ran a lodging house, and they just killed the people that stayed there and then sold their bodies on for medical science. And that's where my chap went, but he had nothing to do with that. It was just after it. And he then joined the Royal Navy as a surgeon and cured cholera. So I'm working on that, but that's a lot of research in the background and a lot of reading. So I'm doing that in the background. So yeah, managing time is just, as I say, you just need to set aside chunks for what you're doing and focus on one thing at a time, because to be honest, your brain will explode if you say I'm doing 7 projects. It'll go, no, I don't think so, and it won't do anything.
But if you do it, if you get stuck in it, you just switch. It doesn't mind because you haven't told it that you're doing 7 things. You're just doing whichever comes up to
your brain will do exactly what you tell it to do, unless you tell it to do too much at once, in which case it will just go on strike.
Which you can understand that. I just find it fascinating that you find it hard to switch your thought processes between, say, doing Bertie the Buffalo picture books for children, and then suddenly having to switch to maybe doing the Marketing Matters, and then switching to being able to try and focus on a crime fiction where you're plotting out all sorts of nefarious things and solutions. So do you find that switch with your mindsets easy, or it just sort of comes to you?
I've been fortunate in that it's worked fairly well. However, it's setting the scene. All of it is creative. People think, oh, you're writing non-fiction, it's not creative. It's all creative. I mean, my fiction book, not fiction, my non-fiction books are quite humorous as well. I try to make them quite in-depth, but light enough and humorous enough that people will enjoy them as well as learn from them. Because, to be honest, I don't think I could write a book that didn't have a bit of humour in it. I think it's impossible. But again, your brain will do exactly what you tell it you're doing. So if I say to my brain, I'm writing a D.I. Shona McKenzie mystery, it will immediately think of killing people. About serial killers. They'll immediately think, oh, you've got to have a load of dead bodies. And my brain will switch into Detective Inspector Shona McKenzie's language, tone, the way she talks, the way her team acts, and it will just do that. If I put that aside, the next day, I can go on to Bertie the Buffalo. And I mean, I'm going to show you, but if you've got this sat beside you, that's the little chappie who will actually help you suddenly become a children's writer. If you've got that beside you, you're a children's writer. And I wasn't showing you that for any other reason than that's what can work, you know. Set the scene. But if I go into cast Claymore, immediately I'm thinking humour. So my brain is thinking humour. But here's another tip for you, and this is a really good one. I use Evernote. Wherever I am in the world, I have Evernote on my phone. Now, for those that have never heard of it, it's an app. I have the paid version, so it means it works across. If I have it on my phone, it appears on my iPad, it appears on my computer, my laptop, it appears everywhere. If I think of something, wherever I am, now I've got a T-shirt that says, anything you say may be taken down and used in the novel, yeah? And it's true. And if I'm sat anywhere and you're talking loudly next to me and you're nothing to do with me, trust me, just because I've got a laptop in front of me doesn't mean I'm noting down what you're saying. Or a notebook in my hand, write it down. Now, not word for word, because that's not fair play. Let's play fair here. But I write it down in Evernote. Anytime I've got an idea for any of my series, I write it in a folder in Evernote. When I come to actually write that genre, if I'm sick, I can just copy and paste from that. So I've got something on the page already. So my brain will read that and immediately go, ah, that's what you're writing.
Awesome.
So it works beautifully because my brain is straight in there.
Awesome. And I think that's a great tip, because it's, I sort of say that when I'm with my mentoring clients and we're talking about, you know, books and speeches, because I help people writing the speeches. And I just sort of say to them all the time, you should be keeping yourself a notebook or Evernote, something like that, because ideas for speeches, ideas for topics, ideas for helping people just come out of the blue wherever you happen to be. And if we're reading a newspaper, you're reading a journal, even reading an ad on the side of the wall could prompt an idea for you to talk about something. And that can be the same for your books. Absolutely. Being open to suggestions. Publish or self-publish? You use a publisher, a normal, usual publisher? Yeah.
Traditional publisher.
Yes.
I have both. I'm hybrid. So one of my friends calls me a zombie because I'm hybrid. I independently publish and I traditionally publish. I started off independently publishing and I approached publishers who said no, but they got a bit of a surprise when the books actually did extremely well. My DI Shona McKenzie Mysteries, and it's because my books did extremely well, my self-published books, that I was approached by publishers for the other books, my young adult books. I've got a tentative publisher for the new one I'm writing, the one about Thomas Graham. There are different ways of doing it. Now, I want a traditional publisher for children's books because they know about children's books. I don't know huge amounts about children's books. I was a children's nurse. That doesn't make me an expert in writing children's books. But they do. They know what the polished product should look like. They know about illustration. They know about cover design. They know about... So I know about writing. To be honest, I'll tell you how I started writing children's books. I'm going to tell you a very quick story about Bertie the Buffalo. Bertie the Buffalo escaped in real life. And I was asked, and he really was a real buffalo, and it was the BBC that called him Bert. And I was asked to write the story of what he was doing while he was running around the countryside on his own for 2 weeks. So that was how I got into it. And I said yes. So I did it. But it was a story, and then the publisher said they wanted it in rhyme. So this is why I'm telling the story. Now, they didn't give me a very long deadline to write it in rhyme. They wanted it like the next day. And it's a good job because I'm not a poet by any means. But it turns out I can write children's rhyme. And I did it by going to Julia Donaldson's Gruffalo books and looking at the meter, looking at how she put things together, and then was able to do that. But if I'd been given a long deadline of 3 months for that, I don't think that book ever would have been written in rhyme. But my brain just went, deadline coming up, you've got to do this in rhyme, off you go. And it worked. It worked beautifully. So there's different ways of doing it. I've forgotten what your original question was. I hope I'm answering it, but it was the different genres you were asking about, yeah?
It was actually started out talking about the publisher, but I was very interested.
The publisher, yes.
Yes.
So I got a publisher, for that one, because I knew nothing about it, but they did, and that example was they knew more about writing children's books and knew it would be better in rhyme. So that's why I wanted a traditional publisher. I think both ways, both publishing methods are equally valid. You can have publishers, you can do it yourself. If you're doing it yourself, you need to do it professionally. Have your own imprint, use your own ISBNs, get a professional cover designer, get a professional editor, do everything as though you were doing it through a traditional publisher. The difference between them is I have to do everything. I have to literally do everything for myself published. The traditional publishers will do the cover design, they will do the editing, they'll do everything. Whereas you have to do it yourself. you do make a bit more money out of your self-published ones because you're the publisher, so the money's all coming to you. Obviously, if you're traditionally published, the publisher's taking some of that, quite rightly, because they've, you know, taken all the risk on whether it will work or won't work. So yeah, that's the difference.
They take quite a big chunk to the traditional publishers, and because they have to take that, a lot of new writers don't realize that they think they're going to make a lot of money, but for the traditional publisher, you've got to be aware that they do take quite a lot of the...
Yeah, you get about 7%, which isn't a lot per book. You know, so you do make more money. I buy my books. I sell a lot of books at events, and I mean a lot of books at events. Now, if I get them from the publisher, I have to pay a lot more money to get them, quite rightly, because again, the publisher has to make money. Yeah. You know, they have to make money. They're a business. People think, oh, they're a publisher, and they're just, without the writers, that to be honest, they need to pay the writers, because without the writers, where would they be? They wouldn't be anywhere, yeah? So I do believe that traditionally published writers perhaps should expect a bit more than they're getting in a lot of cases. I won't go into my contract, but I'm happy with my contracts, is all I'm going to say, yeah? But some authors are not getting very much at all, yeah? And I think they do need more. I think it's not, you know, they take perhaps more, but they do have overheads. The publishers have overheads. Yeah. So the books I buy from the publishers do cost me more, so I don't make as much when I sell at events. But if I sell my self-published ones, I make a lot more money at events. So, but it swings and roundabouts, you know, because I sell a lot of Bertie the Buffalo and Ferguson Flora books, so I make money.
It's if you're going to be going with traditional publisher, there are some advantages to it. They've probably got more reach that they can push your book out to start with. They do support you, although I do know some publishers don't do a lot of marketing for you. You still falls back onto you to market, and that just sort of leads us to just a couple of tips from you. Your top 2 tips that you would say for writing, or how to get your book out there so people can find it.
Well, my top tip for writing is people go, oh, I don't know what to write about. I want to write a book, but I don't know what to write about. Well, to be honest, you feel like saying to them, well, you might want to think about what you want to write about, not just thinking about the fact you want to write a book, you know. But you don't say that. I mean, because that's not fair, because they do want to write a book and they are genuinely asking a question, you know. So what I say to them is, well, what are you interested in? And they'll go, oh, I'm interested in, you know, baseball, or, you know, going down the pub and drinking, or whatever, you know, what they're interested in. You say, that's absolutely amazing. Why do you like that? And before you know where you are, they're talking about it. And I go, why don't you write about that then? Because it's obviously something you're interested in. To start with, you need to write what you know. You'll soon run out of things that you know and have to write about things you don't know. Because unless you know everything in the world, but, you know, write about what you're interested in. I say to them, what do you read? Oh, I like reading fantasy. Oh, who's your favourite fantasy author? Joe Bloggs. Why? Oh, his books are, and then off they go. And you go, right, that's what you're interested in. You're interested in travel to Mars, so why not write about that? So that's my top tip for writing. Write about what you're interested in, because then you'll have at least some knowledge of it and you're not sitting at a blank page. My second tip will be for marketing. And my top tip for marketing is network and be nice. That's my biggest tip that I can give you. Network and be nice to people, because invariably they're nice back and they will help you. But help other people because you genuinely want to help other people, not because you think they'll be any use to you.
Awesome. Have you got a couple of your books there to show us?
Oh, I have. I'll get them from the shelf behind me. I haven't got the new one because the paperback hasn't turned up yet.
Oh, look at these.
I have some here. Oh, I wonder if I've got one of the non-fiction. I might as well bring a non-fiction out. Apologies for wandering off. Most people would be prepared, but it's It's silly o'clock in the morning in Scotland.
Early morning in Scotland, and we really appreciate Wendy getting up that early. But I just wanted people to see some of the different sorts of books and see some of them so they can recognise them.
No, that's absolutely fine. Well, this is Cass Claymore. This is Humorous Mysteries, and it's Antiques and Alibis. I don't know if you can read that, but it's Antiques and Alibis. Now, that's humorous crime. It's a red-headed motorbike riding ex-ballerina who inherits a private detective agency and accidentally hires an ex-con dwarf and an octogenarian. If you like a bit of fun, that's the book for you. These are two of the books in the Detective Inspector Shona McKenzie Mysteries. Killer's Crew, apologies for the picture at the top if anybody's a bit squeamish, but they are crime books. This is the Discovery book, the Discovery boat ship in Dundee that Sir Walter Scott of the Antarctic. Sir Robert Falcon Scott went to the Antarctic in, and it's in Dundee, and this is somebody hanging there. And that's the one that won the Bookstore Social Book of the Year. That's another one, Killer's Crypt. That one's fresh bodies in old crypts. So that's that. And then here's one of my Motivation Matters. If you're struggling to write, this is 366 tips. Well, not tips, it's exercises on how to get writing every day, to start your writing every day. So it's 366 because it's one for every day of the year plus one for a leap year. I didn't want leap years to feel lonely.
Love it. I love how your humour comes through whatever you're talking about, whatever you're doing. Awesome, awesome. Now, you've got a free gift for some people, for our people watching.
I have. I've actually got 3 free gifts.
Three,
no less.
Yeah.
3. Well, one of them is if you like my adult fiction, you can get a free Detective Inspector Shona McKenzie mystery by going to wendyhjones.com, and you need to enable pop-ups because a pop-up will pop up, funnily enough, and you will be able to sign up to my newsletter, which I don't spam anybody with. It's just interesting facts about my books and about the research for my books, and you don't get one more often than every 2 weeks. If you want a free writing and marketing blueprint, you can get that from wendyhjones.com/writing and marketing. And again, a little pop-up will come up and you will get that. If you go to wendyhjones.com writing and marketing and fill the form in at the bottom, you will get a complimentary either writing or coaching session, or I can even cover both if you want both, and that's for whether you're starting out or whether you're experienced, and you will be able to get a free one-to-one with me.
Awesome. And I think that would be an absolute, a brilliant session for anybody who's thinking about writing a book, or anybody who's got a book who's wanting to get a little bit more tips on how to market and leverage that book out there. Now, what is the biggest difference, just before we go, we should wrap up, we're going to be talking for ages. What is the biggest difference, do you think, between writing and marketing in Scotland and elsewhere in the world? Because both of us, I'll just let everybody know, we are actually co-authors in a book, which is The Power of White. And it's been awesome. That's how I met Wendy, and it's been awesome discussing our different approaches from writing here in Australia and writing in Scotland. So just a couple of things that you might have come across from that.
Well, the first thing is, if you're Scottish and you're writing crime fiction, I have to say you can sell books because we love crime fiction in Scotland. So, and our second biggest export after whiskey is crime fiction. So basically the rest of the world thinks we're a bunch of drunken murderers. So, you know, just run with it and use whatever you've got is what I say. If you've got it, flaunt it, just use it. But we have in Britain as a whole, the mantra is that if you're publishing, working with a publisher, I know that elsewhere in the world you sometimes will pay publishers as part of the partnership that doesn't happen in Britain. In Britain, publishers are literally, they pay us. That's the way it happens. Yeah. So whether that's through royalties or whether you get a grant, whether you get an upfront advance, which is happening less and less now as the publishing world changes, that's what happens. I've discovered something else that in various other places in the world, if you do a book launch, that you will pay X amount of dollars to go to that book launch. Again, that doesn't happen in Britain. People come to the book launch for free in Britain and they buy the book. That's how you make your money, by buying books. So the way we make money is by actually the books selling. Yeah. And I'm not saying either model is bad or good. I'm saying they're just different. They're different approaches. Yeah. But we have a big thing. I mean, in Scotland, we're so fortunate. We are really fortunate because we have a huge literary tradition, as I said. And we have a First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, who is a passionate reader. And she's passionate about books. So, and she will put money into libraries, into the books. And now we do have libraries that are closing. That's happening all over the world. Libraries are being used less as people are reading ebooks, and they're reading ebooks even from libraries. But we do put money into it. We've got something called the Scottish Book Trust. If I go to speak at a conference in Scotland and somebody gets funding from the Scottish Book Trust from me, I will get £175 to speak at that conference. I will get £175 to speak at a school because the Scottish Book Trust pays it, because they've applied for funding. So we are very fortunate that put money into this, and we are paid for things. We're not expected to do things for free. Now, that's not saying that it doesn't happen. If I go to libraries and they haven't got funding, I will speak for free, you know. But on the whole, people do expect to fund us and fund us for our time. And the other difference is that Britain is very small. So it's fairly easy to market books in Britain because we're not very big. I would assume it is a lot more difficult in Australia because you are so disparate. It's massive, absolutely massive. If I want to go to a book signing in London, it's 6 hours on the train for me, and it's at the other end of the country. Yeah. I spent 8 hours on a plane and I hadn't even gone across Australia.
That's right.
Well, somebody said to me, if I was in Australia and somebody said, oh, would you like to come to Alice Springs to do a book signing? You think, that's an 8-hour flight. You know, it's a bit different.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is. It is. It's extremely different. And the cost of books in Australia, their prices are completely different price structure. It's a different way because while we're a big country, we have a smaller population.
Yeah.
So the numbers are not as good for quality and quantity. Quality's there, but the quantity of books takes a bit of doing.
Something else about pricing and the difference. There is no tax on books in the UK. At one point, very briefly, we had tax on ebooks, but the government removed that again. They were going to remove it in July, but when COVID happened, they removed it in March, and they just said, that's it, no tax on books. There's no tax on reading in Britain. So that's the other difference. I have had a huge shock. I did a 10-week book tour of the States last year. 8 weeks, I'm lying, I did an 8-week book tour. And I was shocked at the price of books in America. And people were coming up to me and going, well, you've only got, you know, how come your books are so cheap? And I go, no, they're not cheap. They're like £9.99, which is about $11, $12. And everybody was going, yeah, but the next book up is like $25. I'm like, what? For a book? But it's all to do with tax and things. It's a different pricing structure. So we are really, really fortunate here that there's no tax whatsoever on books.
Well, that's awesome. Because for Australia, I mean, I find American books are very cheap to buy compared to Australian books. It's even with the exchange.
And the other thing I'll say, going back to how they fund things, when I went to America on my tour, because I'd been invited to speak at a conference, I applied for a grant for my flight and I got the money for my flight to America. So, hey, you feel like inviting me to Australia when we're allowed to travel.
I'd love to.
I might get a grant to come.
Awesome. I mean, it'd be unlikely to get a grant to go overseas from here, but we have to just wait a bit, I guess, until we can get over.
Oh gosh, nobody's going anywhere. I'm meant to be in the States as we speak, but I'm not in the States, funnily enough. I'm in Scotland.
Look, we could actually talk books and marketing for a very long time because I find it's fascinating This is what I love about having guests on my show. This is what I love about connecting with people globally, because of the different perceptions, different thoughts, different ways. None of it is wrong or right. There's no right or wrong in any of it. But I just find it fascinating how different countries, different cultures approach reading, approach books, approach writing, and approach marketing. And it's a fabulous thing to be able to share with that. So look, Wendy, thank you so much for being with us. Just let me know, where can people find you? We've given them some website. That's about the best way to contact you, or?
Yeah, wendyhjones.com. You can get me through there, or you can get me via email at wendy@wendyhjones.com. It's fairly easy to remember. Or Wendy H Jones, yes. Wendy H Jones everywhere.
We need to, I think you just need to quickly share why it's Wendy H Jones, because if you don't put that H in, you're going to find yourself somewhere else.
Yes. The H is important because there is another Wendy Jones, and if you look her up on Amazon, I don't actually know this lady, and I'm not dissing her books, but she's written a book called The Sex Lives of English Women. I did not write that. I know nothing about the sex lives of English women. Nothing whatsoever. So if you're looking for that, go there. And I have to say, I think the poor woman keeps getting my email, because I don't know why, but she does. Oh, because I think people forget the H and they put Wendy at wendyjones.com and it goes to her.
So remember the H, because we're speaking with Wendy H Jones, and it's been an absolute delight to have you on the show, Wendy. Thank you so much for sharing your books, your thoughts, and some of those really great tips and techniques and strategies for getting your book out there. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure being in Australia. I love Australia.
Thank you. People, you've been watching Get Known, Be Seen WebTV, and we have been bringing to you in this session Wendy H Jones sharing her tips and strategies. Some of the things that I've taken out of speaking with Wendy today is the networking tips, because that is, if you want to market, network, get to know people. And I love the fact that just start writing and write in what interests you. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, just contact me, comment below, and I'd love to contact you and have you on my show. And I said this is about people who have strategies and techniques to help you get known and be seen. It's also about those people who would like to get up there and be seen. My passion is helping you to get out there and get seen, get known. And if you would like to work with me, I do mentoring. I have a book marketing club where we get together every week to help you leverage and market your book. So there's links below for that you can join me on. If you would like to have me as a guest on your show, again, please contact me. My email is below. Love to be a guest on your show or your podcast. And if you would like me to speak at one of your events, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, when we can get together, again, just contact me in the link below, and I would be lovely to come and share my passion about getting known, being seen, my passion about speaking up, and my passion about writing. And to our next episode, don't forget to push that lovely big subscribe button below there so that you will always be notified of every show that comes up on Get Known, Be Seen WebTV. Until then, be awesome and have fun doing what you're doing.